Hi everyone, welcome to EdTech Camp on Air. I'm Jaymyi Lesmond, a K-12 engagement platform consultant, and my session today I'll be sharing how to leverage the K-12 engagement tool presented from the board, which is called Edsby, to leverage it for communication. I invite you to engage in this presentation by using hashtag EdTechCampOnAir on Twitter. Let's get started. Today we're going to learn how to use Edsby to collaborate with families, and how to collaborate with colleagues, and how to collaborate, most importantly, with our students. Before getting started with Edsby, you're going to want to make sure of a couple pieces as a teacher. You're going to want to make sure that your admin has made parent accounts active. What they need to do is they are using the parent's email that they have registered at the school, and that's how they create parent accounts. So you may have some parents in your classes with your students that want to create accounts, so you'll have to refer them to the admin. There's a resource attached into what the parents can do and how they can set that up, as attached as one of the resources as part of this session today. To create student accounts, again, you'd have to go through your school admin team. They would be able to activate that for the entire school. And what students use are their GAPS username and the same GAPS password to log into Edsby, the same way that a parent would and the same way that staff. There is a resource attached, also attached to today's session, on how to set up student accounts and what they would have to do. So let's get started. A couple pieces we're going to clarify is on this right side of the panel here, you're going to see where it says My Parents. If you click into that, you will see all the parents in your classes that you teach that have Edsby accounts. You would see an email address there, you would see active as of a particular date. I'm in a demo account right now, so you won't necessarily see the same reflection, but you would be able to sort and see there which parents have Edsby accounts. Again, this is only the parents that have Edsby accounts, and they've gone through the process outlined in the resource that I'm attaching to this document. So let's go to our Edsby homepage, and now let's say I want to communicate with a whole bunch of my families about what is happening to the class. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into one of my classes. I'm going to click where it says Students, and I'm going to click this little gear icon where it says More. I have a few options here. I can message the parents only. I can message parents and students. Requesting parent and student permission isn't active right now, so you don't need to worry about that. But for our purpose, we're going to message the parents only. And what this will do is it will bring up a BCC list of all the parents that have either accounts or have an email registered with the school. So you'll be able to send that out. You won't have to manage a distribution list anymore. All the messages are marked BCC. And I'll show you where it goes afterwards and where you want to access that. So we'll compose a message. And again, this is going directly to the email address that is tied to the parent that they have at the school. So the parent's going to want to make sure that it's an email address that they are regularly checking. And of course, it's the message, the email address in which they are creating their account with. So let's type a message to our families. And then when we're ready, we can push send. Before actually pushing send, you have a few options here at the bottom. You can attach photos. If you wanted to take a quick photo from your device, you could do that. You could attach files from your computer. You can also insert any types of links, and also you can insert from your Google Drive. You'll be asked to sign in, and the great thing about accessing from the Google Drive is you don't have to worry about any modifications to any documents or sharing out any types of links. What it will do is it'll create a PDF copy from your Google Drive to any resources that you want to attach to the parents. But just also keep in mind that these options here that you see at the bottom, those options will only be viewed by parents that have Edsby accounts. Parents that do not have Edsby accounts and you're simply just emailing, they won't see the attachments. So you'll have to make sure that all the message that you want your family community to see is in the message box. So just to kind of make sure of that before you proceed and to honor any type of issues of equity. If you need to verify again, you can always look at the My Parents tab to see which parents have Edsby accounts and which ones that do not. And when you're ready to finally send your message, just click the little blue button at the bottom and push send. Now you might be wondering, where did that message go? How do I see it? What you'll need to do is, you see this envelope in the top left corner where it says view my messages. You'll click on that and you'll see here, this is the most recent message that was sent. See it titled in the form of a broadcast. And what it does is it looks very similar to a WhatsApp type of feed or any type of text messaging that you may use. You'll see that what date it was sent. If you hover over, you can see the exact timestamp of when a particular message was sent. If you notice in the actual broadcast box here, you see a little lock icon here. So you can open the conversation to facilitate families responding, and when families respond, it will be a separate thread that you can follow. So you won't have to worry about managing all the separate threads. It'll create a separate thread. But if again you're using this just to use that term broadcast, just to push out information, and you don't really need a response, you can close the conversation. And what will happen is, on the parent end, is that this entire box at the bottom here where you can enter a reply will not be there for the families. Again, leave that to your professional judgment about how you want to leverage communication in your classroom. In the event that we only want to message a few of our families, here's what we're going to do. We're going to be on our homepage and we're going to click the option on the right side that says My Students. We're presented now with a list of all the students in all the classes that we teach. We have on the left side of the screen all our different classes, and we can further sort and filter to just one or two of the classes that we teach. Now when we're ready to message our families, we're going to click the little gear icon box, and we're going to select the names of the students and their families that we want to send a message to. Then we're going to click the little drop down arrow, and we're going to select the option that says Message Parents. And you'll see marked BCC the same way we did with an entire class list of all the family members who either have an Edsby account or have an email associated with the school. And the same rules will apply. We type our message and then we push send. And if we want to retrieve that message, that will live in our View My Messages envelope right next to the Edsby logo on the far left of the screen. And you can see that this is the message that I sent just a little while ago. You can also compose messages directly from this area of View My Messages. Just click the little pencil icon to bring up the option Compose Message. And if you know the parent's name, you can type that name in and make sure that you select the parent. Now be careful, you also see a description of the person's role in Edsby. We have some staff members that are also parents as well as YRDSB staff, so you want to make sure that you choose the right option. So be very mindful of that. And then just type in your message. And then push send. And the same rules would apply. As a staff member, you also have some options on how you're going to facilitate communication. What you can do is navigate to your name in the far right corner. Just click there and you have an option where it says profile, and you can edit this section for yourself. Your families, when they access Edsby, they would see your profile information because you're associated with their child. And here's a great place in which you can enter your office hours, how you want to be communicated, a little bit about the class, whatever works best for your family community. So I encourage you to fill that out. You can also translate the Edsby page by installing the Google Translate extension to your Chrome browser. So first you would need to go to the Chrome Web Store, search out Google Translate, and install that extension to your browser, and you can translate not only the Edsby page, but you can translate any web page. So this would be great for our families where our students come from languages that English isn't the first language. So what I would do is, now that I have the extension installed on my computer, I just click the extension and I will translate this page. Just make sure I change the language, and then it changes all the text in the page. You want to make sure that, also bear in mind that it's not a perfect translation, so just have to bear this in mind when you're using this application. Great for our families to reduce any type of barriers. This also works on Android-based devices for the mobile platform. So keep that in mind when encouraging this and using this for our families in our district. Next, we're going to look at how you can leverage Edsby to communicate with your students. Students have their own accounts, just like parents, just like yourselves as teachers. They would need to be set up by your school administration. So your school administration would contact the YRDSB service desk, and they would enable student accounts active for the entire school. Students would log into yrdsb.edsby.com, and they would enter in their GAPS number and their GAPS password for access. So let's take a look at right now a student page. On the left side of the screen would be listed their school, they would be listed their classes, their portfolio and their learning story, and any groups that they are a part of. This could be any type of extracurricular, any sports teams. They would have access to the school news river if the school is posting various events and announcements. And in the middle of the page would be the recent activity, which would be pulled all the different classes that a student is part of, all the posts from all those various classes. Students also have a calendar that they can populate, or that teachers would populate, related to any events, any due dates, any sports events, any events from the school calendar would populate on these specific dates, as well as their class schedule. So let's take a look at also some of the account features that students have. So what we would do is they would click on their name on the right side of the page, and then they would go to account settings. So they also have the ability, again, if this is an older students that have their own individual devices, they can set up their own notifications. So what they would do is they click on change, and they have the ability to be notified for each class as either a push notification, which would go to their mobile device, or within the Edsby platform. So they can click on a class, they have the option to be notified via Edsby or via push, and they can decide as many of the class components that they would like to be noted for. So let's take a look at upcoming tests, feeds and activities, assignments due, and you can individualize this for every class, or you can decide to apply the changes to all the classes. And then you click save as a student, and all those settings would be there for the students. Students also have the ability to change their language preference. The default right now is English, but students also, thinking of our ELL population, could change it into a language that suits them. It won't translate the entire page, but it would translate the headings in the activities all around the Edsby site. So that's where students can take a look at that and save whenever they are ready. And they can just click to escape to go back to their main page. So let's jump back into the teacher view of Edsby and click into one of our classes. So we're going to look at now how to communicate with our students in our classes for our learning management. So I have a few options that I need to take a look at first. You'll need to go over to the far right side and see this tiny arrow in the corner. This is where you're going to view your setup for your entire class. So I'm going to click on that little tiny arrow, and I'm going to choose the option that says setup. And I have options here of how I want the class to look. So this is what I suggest is the first place as a teacher, if you're utilizing Edsby, to make sure that you go into, clarify all your preferences first. So you can decide whether you want students not to enter the class, or you want them to view, or you want this to be a place where they can participate. So let's choose that they can view the class but not contribute at this point. You can decide what you want the parent role to be. Maybe you just want them to only see the teacher's post. You can decide about averages if you want that to be shown, and a whole bunch of other host of features that you have. If you are co-teaching with another teacher, this is where you can add their name. Keep in mind, when you add another teacher to your individual class, they will see all components of the class. This would be any type of assessment information, any type of ability to message the individual students or families of that class. So just bear that in mind before adding another teacher or assistant to your class. And then once you're finished, just scroll to the bottom and click Save. So lots of options that you have in your Edsby classroom. Kind of has a very similar to a Google Classroom feel if you have experience using that type of platform. I can post very general notes, and when my students log in, they will see that in their recent activity. Same for any type of journal. This could be something that you use to reflect with the students, that anything that you want them to contribute back to you. I can also compose my assessments, and it could be an assessment that is for learning or as learning, or it can be an of learning assessment which will count towards their final grade. I can build it here, and what's nice about building it here is it will populate automatically into your gradebook, so you don't have to repeat it twice. And also, if you populated this assessment from the gradebook, it would populate in the feed for the students to see. You can also input calendar events. This would be using field trips. This could be any type of school-wide events that are happening that your classroom is organizing. Anything that you can think of to put in there, it will populate in the student's calendar, it will populate in your calendar, as well it will populate in the students' family members' calendar. So you don't have to worry about repeating a lot of those events, and it's nice to not have to populate again to multiple types of users. And then finally, you have a poll. You can ask questions to your students. What day would you prefer to have your next assessment? Who, as a guest speaker, would you like to come in, if you want to give those options to your students? Also notice that you have multiple options to attach many types of files to any post that you make. I can attach a picture from my actual webcam. I can attach any type of documents from my computer. I can insert any type of video links or YouTube links. I can also attach directly from my Google Drive. So again, a lot of the common question we get is, are we getting rid of our Google environment? And the answer is no. You can actually complement your Google environment with Edsby quite nicely. So I can click on the G to log into my Google Drive, and I'll be prompted to sign into my GAPS environment, and I'll just authenticate that is me that is signing into the GAPS environment. And then I will have a list of the files that are in my Google Drive that I can attach directly into the Edsby environment. What's nice about this too is if you're thinking about family integration, since families don't have direct Google access, it's nice because what this will do is it'll pull a PDF copy of whatever is in your Google Drive, so that way you don't have to worry about converting it to another file type for the parents if that's who you want to also see any work here as well. So I can insert that file, and it will appear in Edsby as soon as I decide that I want to share that post. I also have the option to share to multiple classes. So if I'm teaching multiple same sections as a secondary teacher, or I'm a Rotary French teacher and I'm teaching the same lesson to multiple classes, I don't have to individualize and put in each class. I can decide to select all of those classes that I want to post it in, and I will share that. So let's put a little note there. It has to have some sort of content in the text box, and then I click share, and then that will be posted there for the students, and for the parents if you allow them visibility into the classroom. You also have the option of using groups in Edsby to communicate learning with your students or facilitate also extracurricular activities for students that are outside of your class. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our main page and we're going to click on the word where it actually says My Groups, and we're going to create our own group. And groups can be created for multiple purposes, for student support and student success, such as ELL and special educations. It can be created for sports teams or clubs and be facilitated that way. And a group is pretty much set up the exact same way as a class, but it doesn't have the assessment components to it like evidence of learning or an individualized grade book. So what we're going to do is we're going to click where it says create, and we're going to create our group. Let's say this is a group for the basketball team. I can decide also what type of group that I want to set up. Most times this is going to be a regular group or a club. We're going to talk about this one professional learning community in just a little bit, but for now we're thinking more just using this with our students. I can give a description, add a picture to clearly identify the information from the group. I can decide moderators, so it could be myself as a teacher that's the main moderator, or if I'm coaching with somebody else, I can add their names as well. Also, I have the ability to decide which audiences I want this to be seen by. So again, thinking of a club or a sports team, it'd be nice that this is available to all staff. And similar, this works as almost like another classroom. It'd be nice to be able to communicate information around, let's say, basketball practices with the students and also the parents. For your own leisure, who can invite people, who can reply to posts, who can edit information in the group. Once I'm finished and I've added in all the required fields like the name, the moderators, the show to audience, and the membership type, then I can click the blue create group button and my group will be created. I can always go back into that group and change any of the settings that I would like to change. And as you notice right now that it appears on my groups page right in the middle of my Edsby home screen. So now if I want to go back into this group to make any edits, I just click into it and you can see the setup is very similar to a regular classroom page, but just a lot fewer options that there are on the side. You can also invite students into your group through a couple different ways. There's this invite button in the top right corner. Just click that and you can just type the student name and their name will appear as long as they are part of the YRDSB. And they can also, once you invite that student, they have the choice to accept that invitation. So then I'll just click invite members. So that student will be invited, and on their side there will be an invitation where they can accept or decline the invitation to that specific group. Now if I wanted to add multiple students that I have access to at the same time to my group, I can definitely do that. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the Edsby homepage. I will go to where it says My Students. And again, you can only add multiple students at a time for students that you have access to as a teacher. So usually you're teaching classes, you would have access to all those students. If you are a guidance counselor, you would have access to all the students in the school. And of course, as an administrator, you'd have access to all the students in the school. So then what I can do is I can filter to the individual classes that I have, or I can leave it as all. What I'll do is I will choose this little gear icon, and what it'll do is it'll bring up selection boxes along the side, and I can click on the students that I would like to automatically enroll into a group. I will click this little downward arrow and I will choose the button or the option that says invite to group. Then I have the option here to choose which group type that I will select. We just created the group that was called basketball, so those are the students that I would like to invite. Another great application would be if you are using this for individual literacy groups or literature circles. or any type of independent study that you want to have students look into, this would be a nice way to kind of divide the class and they could facilitate their own learning in that specific group. And then instead of choosing the invite button, which would do what we did previously, I would do the add button, and automatically those students would be enrolled into my group. Then just to verify that, I'll go back to the Edsby homepage. I will look into that group, and you will see that the member base increased with those students added to the groups. Finally, to collaborate with colleagues, you can create a group to facilitate any exchanges of resources or set up any meetings. A lot of options with that type of group setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the same steps as we did before, is click on My Groups. We're going to create, and let's say this is a group for English teachers or the English department. And what we're going to do is, instead of calling it a regular group for the type, we're going to make it a professional development group. And that's going to give us a lot of different options that we have too, where you can upload content for various members of that group to revisit, and it can be carried over from year to year. Same options apply, is that you can add whoever you want the moderator to be, whoever the staff members are going to be as part of that, any type of membership, who can make posts, all of that you have control. Once you've established all your parameters around your group, you're going to go to the bottom of the page and click the blue Create Group button. And then it will appear in your My Groups panel, and you can click into that group and you can see there's a whole bunch of different more options than you would have in your traditional group. What I want to focus everybody on is this content section. This content section is not only available in this type of group setup, but it's also available in your classes. And it's very similar to facilitating a learning management course. So I can click the edit button, and if I click this little plus sign, I can decide how I want to organize the information in this unit. I can create various units, I can create sections, I can create discussion threads. Depends on how I'm going to use this. A lot of options that you can use this for with your peers or with students if you were to use this in the classroom setting. So a lot of options that you can add into there. I'm going to go and return to the group at this point, and I can communicate in this group very similar to I would in a classroom or any other type of group type. Same information applies. There's a calendar for the group. There is a library section where I can house any type of media. I can also pin items for the group members that I think are important and that I want to always remain visible. And I can always revisit the setup options at any point that I would like. So nice way to be able to integrate and collaborate with your group members, and it's nice that this can live on beyond the school year as long as different members are still at the same school. And actually even outside the school, they could still have access to this type of resource. To recap, we covered today how to communicate with our families. Firstly, we need to have our administration set up the invitation process and issue invitations to the family members by making sure that they have a valid email address with the school. We learned how we can send out messages to families, and that all the messages would be marked BCC and go to the family's Edsby account or email address as long as they've had the updated email at the school. We learned how we can control the messaging and lock messages or send messages out that we want to go to specific audiences. And we also learned how to set up our own notifications, which will help us with our families when they want to set up their notifications on their individual devices. In addition, we learned also how to communicate with students through the platform, having students set up their own notifications, again, if they are much older and have their own individual technology devices to facilitate that communication. We looked at also the purpose of groups, either groups for extracurricular activities or groups for classroom learning, how teachers have some options on how they can facilitate any type of learning management. And finally, among colleagues, how to set up a group for professional development, where we have the option to communicate with fellow members in that same group, as well as take advantage of the content section to be able to house resources and materials. A whole bunch of resources are linked as part of the session that you can take advantage of. We also encourage you to make sure that you join your respective panel group. There is a elementary and secondary respective teacher group, as well as an elementary and secondary administrators group that you are highly encouraged to take advantage of, and have an Edsby team member respond to you with your concern. I want to thank you for tuning into my session today and taking advantage of EdTech Camp on Air. Have a great one, everybody.